This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, high-performance cloud hosting for everyone. Visit linode.com/MacVoices and take $20 off your first server package. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, the road to Macstock continues because it's so much fun, and we're going to have so much fun in Woodstock, Illinois at the end of July, and we want you to join us. That's why we're talking to all the instructors and anybody else that we can find who are going to be part of Macstock, and we'll make it the event that it has been in the past and will be again this year. This time, I get to welcome back to MacVoices someone who's been a speaker at Macstock. She's going to be a speaker again at Macstock, and that's Kirschen Seah. Kirschen, welcome. It's great to have you, and I'm so glad that you're going to be at Macstock.
Thank you, Chuck. Yes, it's been a while since I've been speaking at Macstock, but I've always attended since 2016, the second year, and had a lovely, excellent time there. Enjoy the company of all the different Mac enthusiasts, and been taking notes, which is one of the things that we're going to be talking about my presentation.
Yeah, I want to get to that, but before I do want you to note that I intentionally tried to match my shirt color to your hair.
Ah, there you go. Thank you very much. Got to make a statement.
Yes, of some kind.
Thank
so you alluded to note-taking, and
yes.
I was a little surprised when I saw this, because Mike's theme this year for Macstock is create. And then after you explained to me what you're going to be talking about with note-taking, it makes perfect sense. You're going to get creative with note-taking.
Indeed. Back in the ancient days when I was a humble college student, I would take notes longhand and copious notes, writing every single thing espoused by the instructor, because to me at young tender ages, everything was important, so it had to be copiously written down. 3 months later, it's time for the finals. You take out that sheaf of paper and you go, what did I write? and it's really hard to jog the memory, because you've been mostly using one part of the brain, the part which, an analytical side, the side that handles language. Not much creativity, and besides, we were at that time not well trained, and we were just writing down by rote whatever the instructor said. So just 5 or 6 years ago, I happened upon this technique, and you might have seen it on some YouTube videos where all these talented artists draw these pictures and illustrate a concept or a topic at a conference. And I was really intrigued, and I decided to research a little more. And I found a book on this topic. It was a book by Mike Roddy. He started this whole notion of sketchnoting, and he wrote a book about it. And it was all handwritten, just amazing. Essentially, what he does is, when he goes to a conference or he's asked to help capture notes at a conference, at an event, he would sit down and he would not only take textual notes, and that was a little bit, it was more of the artistic drawing, trying to use the creative side of the brain to help understand and put into context all the words that were being said. So if a topic came up, for example, and there was 3 parts to what the speaker was saying, he would draw a big circle and 3 little circles with information nested in them, and lines all over the place, and pictures of people, because the speaker referred to some famous mathematician or famous computer scientist, and he would draw these little pictures, and that helped jog people's memory and keep people engaged and interested. Because if you start writing text, halfway around, you might find yourself falling asleep at a lecture. So having the ability to engage both the creative, artsy side and the more analytical side of the brain, that helps you take notes in a more unique and creative fashion. One thing that happens is I'm not writing out every single thing, and that's what Mike suggests. Don't write every single thing down, but instead process whatever is spoken, and then come out with a concise and neat, maybe a little doodle that captures the essence of what is being spoken. So 3 months later, when you review those notes, that tiny doodle drawing or a fancy textual write up, maybe it's road to Macstock, you'd have a little road, a car, and a little Mac at the end of it, for example. So things that would evoke memories of the event, and that helps people remember things. So that's one of the big creative things with sketchnoting.
I so badly want to ask you about 5 dozen questions, and we can't have you do the session here. That doesn't make sense. But I'm thinking about the sessions that I typically sit through. They're not lectures, but they're presentations by business people, and I'm not being very visually creative, and certainly not having any talent in the way of coming out of my fingers for drawing. How do you even get started with something like this?
I actually started with pen and paper. So I would take 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, turn it sideways because I prefer the landscape view, and you write out a couple of things that would help you set the stage for the presentation. The presenter's name, the date, perhaps the topic, and that helps you bring to mind, okay, this is the presentation or the topic that's being spoken about. And then you would have some idea by looking at the synopsis of the talk as to what the presenter would be covering. So you're a little primed there on the get-go. And one of the key things is don't start writing down the minute the person speaks. Try to enjoy the atmosphere. Try to listen to what's going on, but not immediately write it down, but process it in the brain, and write text, but draw pictures, because pictures really help engage the creative side of it. By now, a lot of us can't draw really well. I'm really bad at drawing pictures of people. So I took a cue from some of the icons I see in word processing programs. So your picture of a person, it's a round circle with a little sort of a semicircle underneath. So that's a person. You could put hair on the person. You could, make it look neat. Other things, for example, if you want to draw something that says this initial process is really slow. I draw a little turtle with foot marks, and that helps. And then the big word "slow" in large text, for example, that way it evokes the idea that, oh, this thing that he's talking about takes a bit of time. And if time is alluded to, I draw a little clock, for example. That's quite easy. Draw a circle, 2 hands, things like that. And you want to draw something fast, draw a few lines at the end. You can tell I watched Bugs Bunny when I was growing up. So. Looney Tunes has much to add to my repertoire of pictorial things. So make it fun, make it enjoyable as you're writing these things and writing and drawing these things down.
That's an interesting point. Chuck Jones and the stuff that he did with Looney Tunes was just amazing. And in our world now, all the animation is so sophisticated, and they're various different styles. But if you go back and watch some of that stuff, and okay, you don't have to pay attention to the content, even though it's still entertaining. But look at the simplicity with which they created it. But he created a world that is completely engaging. And
Right.
so the idea that would influence you, I think, is really intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a place that someone like me could get started. Go back and look at the styles of some of that.
Yeah, for example, something that just came to mind was if you were at a seminar, they were all talking about different kinds of food groups. You could draw a little plate and you could put a little sign that says this is not birdseed, for example. Uh, and you could draw, things which indicate interest. You could draw a little rectangle, put some text in it, and an arrow pointing. Feel free to engage and just draw connecting arrows. I do that by I have a central idea and several 4 or 5 different ideas coming out. I draw a big bubble in the middle, write big words, and then draw little bubbles on the side. And that was using conventional pen and paper. The talk and which I'll be sharing at Macstock is has a slight twist to it because everything Mac, everything Apple. So the slight twist is, can we take this into the digital realm, and what does it give us? Prior to while I was taking notes using pen and paper, at the end of every presentation, I would take a picture of it using my iPhone and immediately share that. That's kind of what we used to do, and that's really handy because people would see that. I would post on Twitter, on whichever service is available out there to share, hashtag it, and put a link to the picture that I uploaded on Flickr, so people could see my notes straight away. And that really worked pretty well. People really appreciated that. And now with what I recently purchased, which is this rather large 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and I decided to say, okay, can I explore and see if I can bring those concepts into the digital realm, and what additional benefits would that give me? So one of the things that it would give me, and I learned this really quick, was I have a real eraser now. I can actually get rid of lines that I didn't quite like. Whereas if I was doing pen and paper, I'll just just scratch it out and carry on. Also, using pen and paper, you're kind of limited by the colors and variety of pens and pencils and other things. I would carry 2 pens, one red and a black one, and I would be able to mark up things with 2 colors. Don't think I ever used the yellow highlighter pens, but that's kind of neat. With the iPad, even with the basic notes application that comes with the iPad, you have the ability to freehand draw lines, text, different colors, different line widths, highlight stuff. So really fast, you can be drawing pictures, writing text in longhand, and have that available as an image that you could then come back to and remember the event. Because you could, one thing that comes to me when I look at the notes I've taken is all the lines, all the text that I've put down. It really brings me back to the day that I made those marks, I made those drawings, and wrote the text, versus just straight text that you would handwrite. Because that to me evokes more and engage more memories about the event of the day. So, and in the digital realm, when you're using an app like Notes, and I've got a couple of others that I try that I kind of like, it lets me not only put the text down, it lets me highlight stuff, like I'm using a yellow, green, purple highlighting pen, change line widths, have more than one layer if you really want to do stuff really fancy. Some of the apps can do multiple layer drawing. Most of the time that's used by people drawing images and so on. But I thought, hey, why don't I try digital sketchnoting with one of these apps? And I do that at work. If I go to a presentation, I've got my iPad, I've got a little stand that it sits on, and I use the pencil, which I really really like, and start drawing things on the virtual page.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What kind of apps are you using? Are you using something that is specific for sketchnoting, or are you just pressing other apps into service? Because from what you're saying, this is a completely freehand thing. So I can think of a few features that might be nice to have at my
Mm-hmm.
command if I'm
Yeah,
trying to do this kind of note taking. But for the most part,
right.
any graphics program should be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple of nice ones. The one which I use extensively is called Linea, Linea. It's by Icon Factory. Really love it. The people do Twitterific, so they also do this very nice app. They've integrated it really well with the Apple Pencil, and I'll be talking in great detail about how you can use a pencil and how it meshes so nicely with the pencil that you feel that you're actually writing on a piece of paper. Now, I've had misgivings about using a stylus on a piece of glass because of scratching, and it turns out that Apple Pencil works amazingly well. I don't have a scratch on my screen surface. It tracks really well. There are a couple of little things with the setup that I found is if you hold the pencil at a slightly oblique angle, it might leave a flat, thick mark because it's like mimicking a, a piece of chalk, for example, that you would lay on slightly off on its side, and it would make a large mark on the paper. But it feels almost exactly like writing on paper.
Hmm.
So yeah, lots of tools it has. It has a pencil. It has a marker. It has the highlighting tool. It has an eraser. It has all kinds of artistic tools. I probably use 2 or 3 out of the lot. And it also has pinch to zoom. So if you want to really get in and touch things up after the event, because maybe your E didn't look really nice, but you can go do it in post and clean a few things up. And
Right.
similar to the way I used to take a picture of my handwritten, hand drawn sketch notes, I would use the share facility in Linear to send a image up to the cloud to my photos to share that with people who would like to see what I've done.
Linode is supporting this edition of MacVoices. You can build it on Linode. One problem with so many virtual cloud hosts is the hidden costs. What looks to be a good deal at the start isn't so great when the bill comes. Fees for extra services, extra capabilities, data transfer, and the like all build up. With Linode, you don't have to worry. Plans range from a $5 per month Nanodes plan up to a high-powered dedicated CPU server. Even better, you can start with one and grow into another with just a few clicks. CPU, network, storage, and RAM all bundled into one low price with no surprises and the ability to upgrade anytime you wish. Pay for only what you use with hourly billing across all plans and add-on services. And that is on top of all the other considerations that you have to take into account when picking a server host. Speed of your server, backups, options for one-click installs, geographic location of your server, documentation, customer support, the list goes on and on. Linode has lots going for it, and you can turn that into lots going for you by visiting linode.com/macvoices and check out all the options. Then, when you buy, be sure to use that same URL, linode.com/macvoices, to get $20 off your first purchase. What are you waiting for? Your virtual server awaits at linode.com/macvoices. Thanks to Linode for their support of this week's MacVoices. Kirschen, yeah, this is fascinating, and I've watched people, and usually it's younger people. Sorry, but it's just the way it is. Have almost complete conversations using emojis and nothing but emojis, and I get the feeling there might be some kind of link here between that and this. I mean, there's a palette of symbols that you're drawing from, but there's no reason that you can't pull that same palette right out of your head, and
Yeah.
just draw them, and obviously probably very crude versions because you're
Hmm.
trying to keep up with the lecture or the presentation or whatever.
Right. Right.
But so for anyone who thinks maybe this isn't for them or they don't understand it, think in those terms, and I
Right.
think you start to get it, because that's kind of what I'm starting to think is this makes a lot of sense, and you do tend to remember images and those kind of things a lot easier than just
Yeah.
piles and piles of
Just
text.
text. Right. Because my belief is you're engaging both halves of the brain. And again, another thing which influenced me in being a child of the 60s, comic books. Lots of pictures, lots of speech bubbles. I would do that. I would draw image of a person, put a little speech bubble if there was something important being said. I would draw it was explosion like things, because if the concept was really important, I'd draw like a cloud around it with rays coming out of it. Just say, oh, this is a really important topic. So you're not just restricted to text. Previously, you had to put 3 or 4 stars, and you go back and what do these 3 or 4 stars actually mean? But if you embellish it with um, little picture elements, for example, titles, sometimes I put a little scroll, a vertical scrolling dot, like a scroll being opened up.
Yeah, no.
So
Again, I guess the important thing is if it means something to you, if it will help
mhm.
trigger those memories, then it's open season.
Yeah,
This is a
that's
this is a
that's it.
fascinating take on creation, and Mike's theme of create, and
Hmm.
just that kind of comes out of left field. I really applaud you for it, and I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
he picked this session.
Yeah.
So at this point, we have to remind people that Macstock 2019 is where you go to register. And
Hmm.
Mike has given us all the speaker codes. And
Hmm.
Kirschen, yours will be right down there in the lower
Right. I
thirds.
would. You
Um,
bet.
and mine is MacVoices. I'll have that there too, and both will be in the show notes. Please use Kirsten's, use mine, use any of the previous speakers. We really don't care. We just want you to come to Macstock, join us for one of the best weekends of the year. It's just so much fun. And Kirsten, usually at this point, I've tried to ask most of the speakers, for someone who's on the bubble, who hasn't made up their mind as to, well, I've heard about it, it sounds fun, but I'm not quite sure. Why would you say someone needs to come to Macstock?
It's the place to meet really interesting and exciting people and have engaging conversations. Um, Most of us know David Sparks, for example. He came last year. He didn't come as a speaker, he was an attendee. And he made himself available for people to just approach him. And he's the nicest person around. You can go up to David and ask him questions. Now, if you ask him Star Wars questions, he probably warm up you a little bit more, but I'll make sure to do that. But he's such an interesting and engaging person that's more than willing to share his expertise. And where else would you be to meet such amazing people? In fact, I believe he's putting on some special do right at the event as well. And there's so many other people who are coming, whom you will see mentioned in your social media feeds, and they're there and they're really approachable. And even if they're not speaking, you get to be at the same place with them. And the best place to go have a chat is waiting in line for lunch. Or even while having lunch, you could just go up to all these people you've heard about and just ask them any question you like. And it's just such an amazing Mike Mike Potter really puts on, and Mike and Mike and his team of amazing volunteers put together a wonderful event. Also Barry as well, and his evening festivities. Really, really fun.
Yeah,
Come.
and exactly, come. That's the point. And sometimes I do worry a little bit because there are a lot of us who produce podcasts that show up. There are so many people that write blogs and do different things in the community that show up, and I'm afraid that at times, for reasons that I'm not sure I understand, some people seem hesitant to approach any of us. And it's like, no, first of all, we're just people. Second, we're all there for the same reason, to learn from each other. And sometimes that learning doesn't happen coming off the stage. Sometimes it happens in line for lunch, or sitting at the lunch table, or at Barry's Saturday night activities, or just in the hallway. You can ask and give and share information. And I feel like I personally come back with so much that I sometimes have to take a week or so just to sort of absorb everything there, because it's just it's such a rich experience.
There's so much applicability. As I'm really excited to hear all the speakers this time around, especially in creativity. I looked at the list of presenters and their topics, and boy, I'm more than ready.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you and seeing everyone. And I hope that, folks, I hope you will go to Macstock2019.com, use our speaker codes, save some money, and get to Woodstock. We are going to have a blast.
Indeed.
Kirschen, before you go, tell us where folks can connect with you pre or post Macstock. What's the best way or best social media presences to find you on?
The best place to find me on is my I have a blog which I sometimes update. That's at freerangecoder.com, freerangecoder.com. And you can always find me on Twitter. I'm at Kirschen, my first name. So catch me there. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on, I'm drawing a blank on the other one. Oh dear.
Facebook, Instagram, micro.blog.
Micro.blog.
Micro.blog, there you go.
Micro.blog, there you go.
I got there.
I also say app.net, but not too many people remember that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing, for the time and for sharing this. I'm really looking forward to it and learning a little bit about sketchnoting. Very, very interesting.
Right. Thank you, Seth.
We'll see you in Woodstock.
See you in Woodstock.
Folks, we want to see you in Woodstock. So one last time, Macstock2019.com, register and join us. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.